Grab your cocktail and get ready for this episode of the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast. Welcome to the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasons while drinking an old fashioned. I'm Brian, and Floridians, you put me in the crosshairs again. We probably have 30 emails, countless texts, phone calls, because Floridians, you're under a gag order. You think that the podcaster Bird's going to be able to solve it. I can't solve any problems, but we can certainly talk about it and maybe give you some sort of, I don't know, a line of questioning that you should maybe ask your Grand Lodge officers, right? That would be something that I would certainly do if I were a Florida Mason, right? So let's talk about the CMI, because the CMI keeps coming up. I've never heard of the CMI, the Inter-American Masonic Confederation. New to me, right? So there seems to be some sort of a beef between the two. Who started it, we don't know, but let's talk it through. So if you look them up, the Inter-American Masonic Confederation, this is pulled straight from their website. They're founded in 1947 as a nonprofit group that merges 92 Grand Lodges together, and they've admitted members in 26 countries in South, North, Central America, the Caribbean, and Europe. They've got 6 zones, right? Mexico, they've got 25 Grand Lodges. Zone 2, they've got 5 Grand Lodges. Zone 3, they have 9 Grand Lodges in Central America and the U.S., New York and New Jersey. Colombia, they have 11 Grand Lodges. Brazil, they have 35 Grand Lodges. Pay attention to Zone 6. South America and Europe, they have 10 Grand Lodges that they currently recognize. So how does Florida fit in, right? So within the last 12 months, the Grand Lodge of Florida has unrecognized 13 Grand Lodges. Are there affiliations with those Grand Lodges with CMI? So let's talk about the recognition, and what's it even take to be recognized? Pretty basic, and this was new. When you do research on topics, it is kind of fascinating what you learn. So hopefully, if anything else, you see what it takes at minimum to be recognized, right? You must admit men only for this conversation, that you must, a presence of a sacred volume must be in lodge. Religion and politics in lodge can't be discussed. You must have a legitimate and traceable lineage. That's super important, right? This gets the Clandies out of there. And you must maintain complete sovereignty. Nobody else can control you. And I think that's going to surface, and that may be a beef that Florida and the CMI are going to take. So what's Florida gone, done, and did, right? So they've removed recognition of 11 Grand Lodges, a total of 13, which we'll talk about here in a second. But Bolivia, Chile, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Honduras, Panama, Portugal, Peru, and France most recently. Mostly Latin countries, right? So there's a total of 13, because a couple of months prior to that, Argentina and Uruguay, their recognition was removed. So is this an attack on Latin Grand Lodges? I don't know. Nobody's given us an official response, but if we're looking at it here, 12 of the 13 Grand Lodges are Latin and 1 French. So what, right? So why should we care as a Mason? I don't know that I care. But if I'm a Florida Mason, I'd want to know, because now Florida's a melting pot, much more than in the Midwest where I'm from, right? And a lot of the brothers tell us that they were traveling to these countries on business and they can no longer go into lodge. This is what is a cool thing about Masonry, is we know brothers across the world, and we like to meet up. It's not that we can't go hang with them, but we can't have what they refer to as Masonic intercourse, right? So here's the beef. So Florida allegedly recognized a Grand Lodge in Paraguay that the CMI and many other jurisdictions don't recognize. By the way, so the Grand Lodge of Paraguay, they have 2 Grand Lodges with the exact same name, period. I don't know why. It's strange. There's no extra letters at the end. The only way you can tell is by who the Grand Master is. So Florida They're riding with the OG Lodge, the originals. And while the CMI is riding for the new guys. So who's right? I don't know. But these would be questions that I would ask if I'm a CMI member. I'd ask that question. And if I'm a Florida Mason, I'd ask why we're riding with this one and not that one, just to help me understand. I think as a Florida Mason, if there's stuff going down, that the Grand Lodge doesn't have to do anything. He can, and the Grand Secretary, they can wave the magic wand and pop it. That doesn't mean it's right. I think if I'm making a big decision and no longer recognizing 13 Grand Lodges, maybe I'd want to be forthright and say, hey, this is what the deal is. Maybe it's a simple brief just to help them understand. A lot of you Florida Masons that are watching this may have never even known that this is a thing, right? So why is Florida beefing with CMI, right? So Florida isn't even officially recognized as part of the CMI. So I don't know why they care. Florida's flexed and said that anyone that signs this Zone 6 agreement, remember Zone 6, right, is allowing outside influence to make their decisions. So they're basically claiming there's not really a true sovereignty there. Somebody else is puppeteering them. Again, what about Florida recognizing the Grand Lodge that they did? Could the CMI post that same argument? So Florida has asked that all the signers of that Zone 6 agreement each explain why that they did that. So I don't know if they have yet or not, and I don't know if they're obligated to. Who knows, right? So why is this stirred up and who's stirring it up? We don't know. A name that keeps getting floated over to the Masonic Old-Fashioned Masonic podcast is past Grand Master of Florida in 2012, Right Worshipful Jorge Aladro. Is he involved or does he have influence? I don't know. That name comes up. I have no dog in that hunt. I don't know if he is or isn't involved. All I know is he's a past Grand Master 2012, right? This is the Grand Master that mentioned pagans and Wiccans. They can't be part of it. I don't know if that's good, bad, indifferent. Florida Masons, you can tell us what you think. A supreme being's a supreme being. So let's wrap this up. If I was a Florida Mason, here's what I would do. If I were a Florida Mason, I would ask my Grand Lodge officers, my Grand Master, maybe my Grand Secretary, is this beef with Florida? Why? Is it because they're Hispanic lodges? I doubt it, but I'd want to know. What's up with the charters in Florida being yanked of our own lodges? I've heard anywhere between 6 and 8. Why is there a gag order still in place? Right? What's up with that? That seems strange. Is the Florida Masonic home actually for sale even after a no vote? I'd ask the question and get something official on writing, but have Florida Masons, you Florida Masons, have you asked formally for an audience with your Grand Master or Grand Secretary to ask all of these questions that have come our way? We can't solve your problems, right? We can certainly talk about it. And I think a lot of good comes out of discussion. But just like the first episode that we talked about with Florida, I guess my charge would be to you. If this was going on in the jurisdiction where I'm a Mason, I would want to go to my leadership and say, hey, help me understand this so I can either be an advocate or I can bounce. I can take my business elsewhere. So Florida Masons, giving you some tools. Go talk to your Grand Master, Grand Secretary. I've not met him, but I'd have to think, hopefully these are reasonable humans and that they would at least give you some insight on such an important decision. So thanks for watching the Old Fashioned Masonic podcast. Cheers.